300,000.
300,000.
300,000.
And 300,000.
And that's how many Ks that this four-wheel drive has just clicked over, and we're about to take it on a big trip through Western Australia.
So we thought we would give you a review on the goods and the bads of this car with all the Ks that it's done while we've done our Australia trip.
So how this video is going to run, we are going to have a thorough review from the front all the way to the back, showing you, as Maddie said, the goods and the bads and the quick explanations as to why they are.
And as a co-pilot myself, I've got my own good and bad reviews on this forward drive.
So it's going to be good for you guys to be able to get an inside perspective of both the person that does a lot of the driving myself and knows a lot more of the specifics of the car, but just as importantly, you passenger princesses out there, you're going to get a review from that side as well, because I think it's very important that you get both sides of the review, so it's more of like an incorporated experience to sort of make you guys navigate your own way on your own vehicles and some things that you may have thought or not thought about.
Correct, co-pilot.
Now for those watching, obviously you're watching us go through our 300,000 kilometre review, but we would love to see what other rigs out there. Drop in the comments to show us how many kilometres that you've got on your four-wheel drive that you're touring at the moment. So the first two things I'm going to quickly smash out is the spotlights. We started off with the King's ones about 3 years ago. As soon as we hit Cape York, both of them came off because only 2 bolts were put into them to go into the bull bar. Make sure you have 3. So we moved on to the Steadies, a little bit higher quality, and I really like the finish with the covers on the front. It makes it look aesthetically good. The second one, the winch, we've got the King's winch on there. It has been on the top of my mind to change that, but in all honesty, it has been reliable, and we will be changing it before WA, but for the past 3 years, it has done its job with no dramas. So we've also changed our UHF aerial, or aerials, I'll get onto that one in a second, but we upgraded from the 4.4 RFI aerial that we've got to the 6.6 GME aerials, just because we found ourselves going away sort of not so much in the thick bush all the time. So we just opted to go for the bigger aerials. And I went the second one because if you've actually got 2 on the front, you get a bigger range. No, I'm totally just kidding. It's totally aesthetic. I just wanted the 2 aerials on the front.
Now let's get to the most important part of the Isuzu dmax, the engine bay and how it's held up over 300,000 Ks. One of the positives about Dave the dmax, or Isuzu dmax, that we find is the engine bay. Look, I personally find that it's really clean and neatly set up, so even I know my way around the engine bay, but also the engine itself is quite powerful. A lot of times we've accidentally got ourselves off-road on hard tracks and we've managed to do them, finding out they're hard later because the engine has just been so reliable for us.
Yeah, so basically the engine that we've got just sitting here behind the camera is the 4JJ1. It doesn't have a timing belt, it has a timing chain, which means that it doesn't need to be changed. You're not going to have the belt snapping, but I mean, one of the consequences of that is that it is quite a noisy engine, but it is really, really, really reliable. I have not had a single hiccup. You know, we've got 300,000 on the ejectors on the inside of it, but I do recommend if you've got one of these engines, they are, I would say probably 30% undertuned when you get them. So what we did is we went and got a basic tune, and it makes a huge difference, and we were worried about that reducing the reliability of the engine. And that has not been the case. As we've shown, we got that done at about 175,000 and it's now at 300,000 and we have not had a single drama with the engine itself or the turbo.
The only negative for me is that, as you saw on the video, I'm a little bit of a shorty and I can't quite reach to get it always up.
So 2 negatives and 1 positive from me. The first negative, real simple one, the coolant cap came off, I remember about 75,000 ago, and it just snapped off on the plastic bit. Thankfully, we didn't lose any coolant, but at the moment it's still broken, but it hasn't re-popped off back. The second one is we seem to blow fuses probably every 25 to 30,000 Ks. There seems to be a dodgy connection somewhere along the line in this vehicle. That was done when I first bought the car, and I can't really put it down to. So we carry a lot of spare fuses on that, but it doesn't happen too often. And then the third one, which is a good one, you can fit an air compressor here in the front, just a single chamber one, not the dual ones. And all you have to do is move the computer here forward 1 screw and it's good to go. So let's just quickly talk about tyres. I've been through 4 different brands, so a quick insight. The Dunlops, they were no good. They were real thin, didn't have much of a sidewall, and I only got about 55,000 Ks out of them. They were no good in the wet. Hankook's, exactly the same page, weren't much of an upgrade. Then we went into the BFGs, the 265 70 R16s that we've got in here, so 16-inch rims. They were really good. I found they were fantastic up until about 60,000. They had a good sidewall. They looked tough as well for aesthetic purposes. And as well, the problem with them though, was after 60,000 Ks, they were crap in the wet, and that's where they get their bad name from. The Mickey Thompsons we've got on at the moment, they are my favorite of the lot. They're a little bit more expensive, but they look really aggressive. They handle really well in the wet, and they've got a lot of traction as well. Like we've been doing a lot of wet stuff, sand stuff, corrugations, and I just haven't had much of a slippage at all. So they're my favorite so far. The next one I want to move into is the shocks on this car. I seem to be having dramas with the top of the bushes. I've had the Petters, I've got the Blistines on at the moment. The Petters stuffed out in the first 10,000 Ks, but then I got another 60,000 out of them, no dramas. Blistines at the moment, I've changed the bushes 3 times in the last 10,000 Ks. Unsure as why that is. I don't know if that's incorrect torque or what's going on, but we're going to be taking those off before our WA trip because I'm just not happy with them.
So before I get into the comfort of the cabin on the dmax, I wanted to go over about some sand driving. I don't know if it's to do with the weight distribution, how we have the rooftop tent closer at the cabin, or if it's just a lighter vehicle, not like a Patrol or a Land Cruiser. But I have just found that this car really holds well in the sand and we have not been bogged once.
Yeah, I definitely do find that despite it being heavy, and we've really put a lot of stuff in it, because it is a lighter make before we started doing it, it does keep us under that 3 tonnes. So I think that's where it has, and the weight distribution, as you said, is a really big one.
Yeah, massively.
So let's quickly talk about the mechanical things that we have replaced on this four-wheel drive in the 300,000 Ks. To give you a bit of an idea, we spend about 60% of the time in this vehicle off-road and the other 30% basically on highways getting to places. But the big things that we have replaced so far is just literally recently in the last 20,000 Ks. We've had both of the bearings in the back wheels replaced along that axle as well, and that was about 2,500. We've just replaced our front discs to heavy duty ones, so we've got about 295,000 out of those. Keep in mind that we were getting those machined every 30,000 or so. And in terms of keeping the vehicle up to date into its services, I've been changing all the basic filters, all the oils, every 8 to 10,000 or so, then taking it to a mechanic on the 30,000 to get them have a more thorough look through it, obviously because I'm not a mechanic. And then the big mechanical drama that we've been having with this is the clutches. Anyone that is really familiar with Maddie and I know that we've been through about 4 or 5 clutches, 2 of those with the owner previous to this, who also were having problem with the clutches. I don't know what it is. It's definitely not us driving, but it seems every 50,000 Ks to 90,000 Ks, it seems to have been that the clutch just burns out, and it's not like a smelly clutch that you get and you know it's on its way out. It seems to just burn out completely. E.g. on our last big trip that we did a video where we had to get retrieved out of Stockton Beach, that's where the last one blew up, and that was about 25,000 Ks ago. No idea if it's just the 2010 Isuzu dmaxes or the Holden Colorados, as they're the same sort of vehicle, but that's just the issue that we've been having with it, and that's been a big drama.
So let's get into the comfort of the cabin. As you can see, as soon as I open up the door, we've only got one drink holder here. We've got some storage here on the side and a tiny bit at the top. Now, I added these sheepskin covers, which does make the rides a lot more comfortable.
That's a grandpa spec.
But from the interior, I've just found that there's minimal space, and I really have had to come up with my own stuff to get a lot more room and storage. So I've got these little extra netting bags that I've stuck to the side. Used to have one up top as well, just because there's no room on the side here. Also, I don't know if you can see, but the center console, there really isn't much room to put stuff in. Even here, it's just minimal access, and it's not another drink holder. So if you're deciding to have your water bottle on road and decide to get a coffee, then passenger's going to have both of them because there's nothing else.
Yeah, Mads and I already know that, like everyone knows, up until the recent 2021 models of the dmax, that they have been known to be about 15 years behind the inside specs of other cars. So it wasn't until the 2021 came out when I believe they got hooked up with Mazda, and they've done all the nice interior now, which you know, you've got all the big LCD screens, the Bluetooth connections, all the cup holders, etc. But that is the downside of the front of this A-Range.
Yeah, it is a bit of a downside, but look, the seats are comfortable, and I guess that's what you really need on a long trip, but extra stuff I wouldn't complain about.
So the last two from me in terms of the Isuzu D-Max itself, and they're a bit of a debatable topic. The first one being airbag suspension. We've had those on there for the past 150,000 Ks, and they have worked an absolute treat. We had one that wasn't working for about 20,000 Ks, and you could really tell the difference. It wasn't bouncing as well over, you know, potholes, bumps, corrugations. It holds up the back better. But it's important to note that we haven't gone over 25 PSI in both bags. A lot of people talk about bending your chassis, breaking your chassis because of airbags. And I think that's more related to over-inflating them. And because you've got that extra point on the chassis where suspension normally doesn't sit, if you've got something that's rock hard there and you're not allowing those shocks and leaves to flex, it's going to bend over that point in the chassis, and I think that's where you get a lot of the breakages. That's why we keep it at 25, because it seems to allow it to bounce up and down on it, as well as helping out with that levelness as you're driving along with all the weight in the back. And now the second one is, I think it's a very obvious one, it's the tub. A lot of people nowadays have a tray and canopy on the back where you're looking at $30,000+ to replace it. I've actually thought that the tub has been working really, really well so far. The things that we've got, so obviously these were custom made by MJM Carpentry, and they have worked well for the past 50,000+ K. So there's no super need and quickly manner that we need to put a canopy on the back, particularly when we're looking at getting a new four-wheel drive anyways, because Maddie and I are looking at having kids soon. But I think the tub has been working really, really well, and the canopy that is on top of it has also been really well. The negative downside to having that canopy on the 2010 dmax is you can't get the rails on the inside to put heavy stuff on top of the canopy, hence why we've only got the max tracks on top.
Okay, personally for me, one of the modifications that I see as a negative is actually this back. Though I might provide some extra storage for that, I personally just find this really annoying to get everything open, especially when you're accessing the back or pulling over so often. Now, with the vehicle itself, the thing that I find personally is a negative is that the back has no gas strut. So might have one up here, but it will just drop right down like
and the
that.
other one's buggered as well.
So as you can see, if you've got something in your hand, try to open this up at the same time. It's just an absolute pest. So I think the newer vehicles do have some gas struts, but I think that's one of the downfalls with this back here.
So let's quickly talk about the reliability of the rear bar that we've got with the two swings on either side, okay? We've had this on here for about 125,000 Ks or so, and I just want to be frank with you guys, the MCC rear bar has not lived up to its name in terms of reliability. The things that have gone wrong is on both swing bars, both of the locks stopped working within the first 10,000 Ks, and then both of the bearings that allow them to swing in and out both collapsed, so we had to get those replaced as well. Within 5,000 Ks, we had so much rust around all the joints and everything, it was almost appalling. But the good thing about them is that they are cheaper and they haven't cracked or broken in a way where it's not giving us the protection around the back. But in terms of the other ones, if you can go to a different brand that has a little bit of a better name, pay the extra $400 because it costs us about $200 anyways to replace those parts. And when Maddie and I were in the middle of nowhere for like a month, we were struggling to open up the sides. I was having to lift one side, hey Mads, and you were having to push the other.
And I'm not very strong. For me personally, two mods that I love that we've popped on this dmax is the long range fuel tank. So it's 120 litres extra. And I just find that gives us a lot of peace of mind when we're doing these long trips, especially if you do come by some diesel that's hella expensive. But also my other favourite mod is the 50 litre water tank that we've got under the vehicle. Now when you're off to WA or NT and a lot more remote places, it does again give you that peace of mind that you're not having to chase water. Obviously, if we do have access to water, we're always filling up, but it just does provide peace of mind.
All right, so final review of a modification on this vehicle, and I'm gonna leave it off on a very positive note, is our 12-volt system that we have adapted over the past 200,000 Ks or so. So we did a full rundown in one of the episodes prior to this, so if you wanna see a full rundown of it, go have a quick look at that. But changing from an AGM battery to a lithium, essentially doubling our power and halving the weight is got to be one of the biggest things that I love so far. And the lithium batteries have a significant bigger and longer lifespan as well. So that's definitely one of my favorite mods. And then the second one that's also sort of involved in that 12-volt system is having a 2000 watt inverter. I feel like I'm at home. I can plug it in wherever, not have a drama about what we can plug in, whether it's induction cookers, laptops, blenders. I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to my ice caramel lattes, hey Mads?
Yeah, big snob.
And I can fit another freezer in behind here as well as our Engel fridge that we've got in there as well. So I think those are my two best ones that we've put into this car. And I think that's more of a luxury and a comfort item.
So I hope this has given you some insight of how this dmax has held up over 300,000 Ks.
Yeah, like I think it's really important that when you watch these videos, even though you don't have this vehicle itself, it's good to look out on the different things that can go wrong with different vehicles to sort of have in the back of your mind it might have been something that you overlooked, but as well as the positives of the different modifications that are good and bad as well. And then more importantly, there's always a driver, there's always a passenger.
Or passenger princess, as he called it.
It's always good to get both perspectives though, because I don't know what's going through Maddie's head. She doesn't know what's going through my head at any time.
And my personal favourite modification to the car is the driver.
You suck up.
I know.
But it's always good to get a different perspective, because different needs, different people, and when you're traveling together months at a time, it's very important that when you go through this stuff, you have a reliable car, but also the modifications that are going well.
And that it does provide you a bit of comfort, because when you are living off-road for a while, well, we all do love a bit of comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll leave you to it, leave you to the next episode, and I hope you enjoyed.